Hi, Laura. Okay, well, things are heating up on the eve of Zimbabwe's presidential elections. Also, the early results out from Mali's vote have stirred up joy and trouble, and the death toll from blasts in northern Nigeria mounted. First, we're not cheats, says Zimbabwe's president of 33 years, Robert Mugabe. However, his rival, Morgan Tsvangirai, accuses the leader of being set on rigging Wednesday's elections. On Tuesday, Tsvangirai's Movement for Democratic Change handed alleged proof of duplicate names on the electoral roll over to South African electoral observers, one of whom reportedly says that the dossier does raise serious questions. A supposed insider from Mugabe's ZANU-PF has also been fanning the flames using the pseudonym Baba Yukwa. The popular bloggers today accused his party of planning on deliberately spoiling ballots. Mugabe says that he will step down if beaten, but he is confident that his Africa for Africans policies will win out with voters. Our correspondents tell us more.
This tobacco farm is about 40 kilometers from Harare. It was taken away from a white farmer under President Robert Mugabe's land expropriation laws in 2001. Tobacco production continues here, and the manager says things have improved over the past 10 years.
The challenges we had on the first year was that since Mr. Zeshiri was a new farmer, he had less equipment and less money to pay labor.
The new owner worked in the customs sector. He declined to be interviewed, saying land restitution was a sensitive matter and highly politicized. More than 10 years after Mugabe's expropriation laws, he's still using the redistribution of land as an election tool. At his final election rally, he reiterated his call for foreign mining companies to cede 51% of its shares to black Zimbabweans without compensation, saying that mineral resources must remain in the hands of Africans.
If you go to Gabon or Congo, in these countries that have oil, you hear the oil belongs to France. France? Why? Is Congo-Brazzaville France? Us Africans, we must stop being so stupid.
Mugabe's main rival, the leader of the Movement for Democratic Change, Morgan Tsvangirai, says while empowerment laws are imperative, his main priority was to ensure a free and fair election. But members of his own party are skeptical about this.
Well, the voters' roll is a challenge, the accountability, the credibility is a challenge, and of course, just the polling officers themselves, especially in Harare, the number of polling stations have been reduced because they perceive it to be an MDC stronghold.
This year's election campaign has been largely free of violence compared to previous ones. This will be the third time Mugabe and Tsvangirai will compete for control of Zimbabwe.
Hundreds of MDC supporters were killed in 2008 after Mugabe lost the first round of elections that year. When Rhodesia first became Zimbabwe back in 1980, Mugabe was a freedom fighter. Since then, his rule has been dogged by accusations of violence, intimidation and human rights abuses. Gabriel Shumba is a human rights lawyer and a Zimbabwean political exile. He's lived in South Africa since 2003, and he joins us now from Pretoria. Gabriel, you're one of those hoping for change.
Pardon me, can you come back again?
You are one of those Zimbabweans hoping for change?
Yes, definitely. In fact, I am one of the millions that are disappointed that we are in exile and we have been unable to vote, in spite of the fact that the African Commission on Human and People's Rights this year gave a directive to Zimbabwe to allow the over 4 million Zimbabweans that have been forcibly and externally displaced to be able to vote from outside Zimbabwe. Having said that, I also want to say that we are hoping for change from corruption. We are hoping for change from rampant and gross human rights abuses. And this change has not been forthcoming. In fact, Mugabe has completely destroyed his own legacy, which started off as good immediately after independence. But you will also perhaps recall that over 20,000 civilians were massacred in Matabeleland. So it was not such a rosy picture, but the world wanted to give President Mugabe the benefit of the doubt. But coming back to elections, I think there has been much said about the elections not being violent or political violence being on the decline. I beg to differ. Reports we are getting from inside the country show that there is widespread psychological intimidation that is taking place, especially at the hands of so-called war veterans. The leader of one of the war veteran sections there, Jabulani Sivanda, has been going around the country to Gutu, to Masvingo, and telling people that if they dare vote...
Gabriel, Tsvangirai has never been reticent about coming forward with his criticism of Mugabe. Why have these allegations of intimidation from ZANU-PF not been part of his allegations against the president in the run-up to the election?
Well, the MDC has actually catalogued, to my knowledge, some of these allegations. It's not as if they have not been forwarded to JOMIC, but JOMIC, which is the joint monitoring organization that was set up under the Global Political Agreement, has been a toothless bulldog. It's one of the structures that was created only to give a facade that things are improving, that the human rights structure of the country is improving in much the same way as the Human Rights Commission was set up. So these things have been raised under JOMIC, but nothing has happened. But I also want to say that we have a global political agreement that SADC guaranteed. SADC is the Southern African Development Community. It guaranteed that it will watch over the implementation of the global political agreement, which, among other things...
Gabriel, thank you very much for joining us. Unfortunately, we're going to have to leave it there. But that's Gabriel Shumbi. He's a human rights lawyer and a political exile from Zimbabwe, speaking to us about his concerns of the ZANU-PF, Mugabe's party, ahead of elections tomorrow. To Mali now, and about a third of ballots from Sunday's presidential election have been counted, and the Minister of Territorial Administration says initial results give former Prime Minister Ibrahim Boubacar Keïta a wide lead. It might even be enough to mean an outright win. The count's expected to be over by Wednesday at the latest. Meanwhile, Keïta's closest rival, Soumaïla Cissé, is not out of the race yet.
The results aren't final, but for the moment he's in the lead by a large margin. Aged 68, Ibrahim Boubacar Keïta, who's known as IBK, has been involved in Malian politics for several decades. He was Prime Minister from 1994 to 2000. Then, between 2002 and 2007, he was President of the National Assembly. His party, the RPM, belongs to the Socialist International Organization. During the campaign, he received the support of Mali's Islamic High Council. His critics say he's too close to Captain Sanogo, the leader of the junta that toppled the former president last year.
Captain Sanogo isn't a bogeyman for me, but he is for those who never accepted the departure of the former president. There weren't many. People have often said exaggerated things about him. That hasn't been my case.
The Malian government said that so far in second position is Soumaïla Cissé, the candidate of the URD party. He's 64 and used to be a finance minister. Like IBK, he studied in France, Mali's former colonial power. Last year, he was injured after being attacked by supporters of the junta.
Well, France 24's Melissa Bell is in Bamako. She joins us now as the count goes on. Melissa, Soumaïla Cissé's camp is contesting these early results, aren't they?
I'm standing outside the HQ of Soumaïla Cissé tonight, and the emotions and the anger here have been extraordinary. Almost as soon as the announcement by the minister was made this evening about the results that were based on a third of the votes, but that suggested that a second round might not be needed, they held a press conference here. it had taken them by surprise, they explained. And so this hastily convened press conference was aimed at calling for that minister to stand down because they believe that he is no longer impartial. And there are two things that they object to, Georgia. First of all, the fact that on the basis of a third of the votes counted and without giving a single figure today, the minister should be able to make that sort of pronouncement about the possibility or not of a second round. But also, perhaps more importantly, they contest the results themselves. As I say, they have yet to see any figures, but they know from their own figures, they tell me, that in fact, although Ibeka may have won in Bamako and in Ségou, two very important regions, in a number of other regions, he didn't actually come first. And they want to see the figures in order that they can be challenged correctly. So tonight, they called for the standing down of the minister, but also the creation of an independent commission so that the counting can go on independently.
Thanks very much. François Gad's Melissa Bell there in Bamako as the count from Sunday's vote continues. Look at some other news now. The UN flexed its muscles in Democratic Republic of Congo Tuesday, giving rebel forces in the east of the country 48 hours to leave the city of Goma or face the use of force. For the first time, the UN's new intervention brigade will help the army set up a security zone in the city. The MONUSCO force has told M23 insurgents that they have until Thursday afternoon local time to hand in their weapons before facing being disarmed by any means necessary. Nigerian authorities say that at least 24 people were killed in a string of explosions that ripped through bars in the northern city of Kano. Monday night's attack targeted a Christian area in a city where the majority of residents are Muslim. Authorities have blamed the blasts on the jihadist group Boko Haram. On Tuesday, the army announced the arrest of 42 suspected members of the sect in the southwestern states of Ogun and Lagos. That wraps up African News for now, but I will be back for more in an hour, Laura.
Georgia, thanks very much indeed. And that's the end of this part of Live from Paris as well. Do stay tuned. Chris Moore will be with you in just a few moments with all the latest international news and headlines. Don't go away.